Hey everybody, it's Allie from Padfoot Palms, Poodles, and Pals, and we are here for the Friday Night Live. So I am super excited. We are going to be talking all about raw food diets. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about raw diets, so I wanted to make sure that it's something that we cover in depth tonight. Of course, as always, you're welcome to ask any question that you want to. It doesn't have to be related to raw feeding. So yeah, so I just figured I'd get us started here. So let me bring you in close. Okay, you can see that somebody is already tuning in. If you would be kind enough to just drop me a comment down in the comments there so I know that they're working. I know sometimes the comments are not working, so hello people. I'm a little bit early, so I just wanted to give people a chance to join. If somebody could just drop me a comment. Heidi says hello. Hey Heidi. Awesome. Okay, great. And of course, now that I've started recording, the dogs are gonna go crazy out in the living room with Suze. So fun times. Okay, great. We've got some people joining. So as always, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments and I can scroll back up, you know, because I'm just going to ramble until I get some questions going. So we'll give people just a few more minutes because I know that I was a little bit early. Hey, Teresa. Awesome. So glad you could join. We're doing the Friday Night Live. Woo, woo. I need like an intro song. Yeah. I feel like it should be disco. I don't know why, but I just feel like that would be fun. It was a Friday Night Live disco. Anyway, I'm getting carried away already and we just got started. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Okay, excellent. All right, so one of the main questions that I get asked all the time when it comes to raw feeding is feeding my dog raw food going to make them sick? And it's a perfectly reasonable question. And I understand why people ask it, because we as humans, hey Paula, we as humans are conditioned to believe that one of the dogs was busting in the door there for a second. We are conditioned to believe that raw meat is bad, right? Obviously, because our systems can't handle it. It's not something we can handle. Raise your hand if you've ever had food poisoning. Yeah, it's not fun. So, hey, Laura's here. Hello, it's been so long. Yes, it has. I'm so glad you're here. So it's a perfectly reasonable question. What we have to remember is that a dog's digestive system, or a cat for that matter, is designed to handle any pathogens, bacteria, things like that are found in raw meat, right? That's why, you know, coyotes and wolves and dingoes and what's that African breed? It's the one that's all speckledy. I don't remember. Anyway, that's why they can all eat raw meat, right? They're not being fed kibble, obviously. They're in the wild. So that's why they can eat raw meat, is because their digestive tract is designed to handle it. Their intestinal tract is much, much shorter than ours. So for the most part, their body really doesn't even have much to do with any pathogens, because by the time it goes in, it's, you know, it's ready to come out, essentially. And it wouldn't be a live session unless we talked about poop. So yes. Oh, Laura says painted dogs. Yes, thank you. Hey, Latasha's here. Hi. So yeah. So people freak out about raw feeding, right? Because you're feeding raw meat. And so one of the things that you have to remember is that many dogs carry E. coli, which is the one that scares the bejesus out of everybody. they often carry E. coli and salmonella in their digestive tract. In some cases, it can actually help them break down the food. So, whereas if we had E. coli or salmonella, it could potentially kill us, right, as humans. So it's a completely different digestive system. And I actually posted not too long ago where I posted some diagrams showing the internal anatomy of a wolf and the internal anatomy of a dog. Hey, Emily's here. Perfect timing. We just got started. So I was just saying, Emily, that about the post that I had tagged you on that shows the internal organs and digestive system of a wolf and a dog, right? Showing that they are essentially the same. Now, they're not 100% the same. We have, of course, we like to tinker with things, right? We're human beings. That's what we do. So as we have domesticated dogs, they have also adapted some of their digestive tract to be able to handle a larger amount of carbs. So whereas in the wild, they eat very, very few carbs, right? They're not, digging up potatoes and things like that. But we have forced our canine companions to eat more carbs. So, genetically, their bodies are slightly different. So, okay, great. I was just checking the comments to make sure I hadn't missed a question there. Okay, good. So that's the first thing, right? People are always scared about, is this going to make my dog sick? And we're going to go into a couple of points here in just a little while where people run into some challenges and they think that it made their dog sick, when in actuality, they just weren't prepared for what they needed to do. But we're going to touch on that a little bit later. Okay, the second most asked question that I get is, why are vets against raw feeding? So there are multiple reasons for this. The most common reason is because people have good intentions, but sometimes they don't do all of the research that they really need to do. So they get really excited about raw feeding and they're like, yeah, this is going to be great. My dog has allergies. I'm going to feed him raw beef and I'm going to put some kale in there and I'm going to put some carrots in there. And I've got this can of mixed vegetables. I'm going to put that in there. And I've got this, leftover liver that we didn't eat that we fried up. I'm going to put that in there. Yeah, this is going to be good. And then after a couple of months, their dog is not doing well. They take them to the vet and the vet is going, what are you doing? What are you feeding? You can't do that, right? And they freak out. And then they're having to redirect this person back onto a path that they know. And most traditional vets, there are some holistic vets who are trained in raw feeding, but most traditional vets have no clue. If you ask them to formulate a recipe for you, they wouldn't even know where to start. So asking them to help you with feeding a complete and balanced raw food or meal or diet to your dog is way, way over their head. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to steer you towards what they know. Oh, your dog has allergies? Don't feed this prescription diet because that's what I was taught to say. And that's literally what they were taught to say. Hey, no. That's Velocity trying to get in here. So anyway, I'm going to do a whole video on the process by which vets go to choose food to put dogs on. And once you understand that process, it's really kind of scary and very sad. But it's hard for me to fault them because, you can't expect one medical professional to do everything. And I have said this many, many times because I get some flack for, giving vets a hard time. But if you're going to be a jack of all trades, like, you really need to know what you're doing. Or you need to just focus on one thing that you're good at, right? And a veterinarian is very much like a general practitioner, right? But they also have to wear so many other hats. They have to do surgeries, right? Reproductive surgeries at that, right? They're spaying and neutering dogs and cats. They have to figure out about allergies. They have to figure out about all sorts of other medical procedures. So they're a surgeon, they're a general practitioner, they're working with allergies, they're working with, old dogs, young dogs, puppies, various breeds with specific issues. It's overwhelming, the amount that they are expected to know. So while I feel for them when it comes to their limited knowledge of nutrition, I also feel like if somebody came to me and they were asking about a surgical procedure, I would refer them to a professional who's a surgeon, right? Just like if you were to go to your doctor and say, hey, doc, I'm feeling tired all the time. I'm having these allergic reactions to peanuts, right? Maybe I should do something with my diet. You know what the doctor's going to say? He's going to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's do some blood work and let's send you to a nutritionist. Duh. Like, that's what humans do. That's what we do. If you go to the doctor, that's what they'll say. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off on that tangent because I absolutely will. So that's point number one, right? People don't do a raw diet correctly. This is also true of a home cooked diet. And so they end up at the vet and the vet gets upset with them because now they have to tell them, hey, you're not doing this right. I can't help you do it right because I don't know. So I need you to get on this prescription kibble instead because you can't be trusted to do what's best for your pet. That's essentially what they're saying in a nutshell. So the second part of that is vets do not like to recommend raw feeding specifically because it can go against the terms of their malpractice insurance. So veterinary malpractice insurance is often tied to, or their policies are often tied to, whatever the main veterinary association is for that country, their stance on things. So for right now, it's very anti-raw food, anti-raw feeding, anti-DIY raw feeding, anti-home cooked, anti-home, DIY feeding. So it's all very one-sided, which of course their claim is, well, we don't have any research. Which is true. There is more research that's becoming available. However, that research is very, very expensive. And the companies that usually do the research, yeah, they're the ones that they only publish the information if it's helpful to their company. Okay, well, if a kibble company does research about what's better, kibble or raw feeding, and they find out that raw feeding is better, they're not going to publish that information. They're going to go, whoops, okay, never mind. We don't want to have anything to do with that, right? That hurts the bottom line. So anyway, malpractice insurance, people who don't do it correctly and then cause their dogs to become ill. Okay, so I'm trying to keep us moving. We've got a lot of people that joined. If you missed the first portion, don't worry. I'm just rambling. I'm waiting for people to comment with their questions. And I'm just kind of going through these various points that I have on my little cheat sheet here. So, okay. If you have a complete and balanced recipe for example, from the files of the group, can you substitute ingredients in the recipe? Okay, so I get this question asked a lot. The recipe is complete and balanced as it is. There is a specific ratio that's needed, that's needed for calcium and phosphorus, right? Which kind of gives you the meat to calcium ratio. There are a lot of vitamins and minerals and nutrients that need to be met. So if you substitute ingredients, let's say if you were to substitute pumpkin for squash, okay, well, you may be getting close, but you need to understand that that recipe may not be complete anymore. Now, if you were feeding an adult dog, would this be the end of the world? No, it wouldn't. Especially if you only did it for 1 or maybe 2 batches, that would be fine. It's not the end of the world. Especially if you're doing an additional multivitamin on top of that, chances are the multivitamin would cover you. If you're feeding a puppy, can you do that? No. If you're feeding a puppy a raw or home-cooked diet from a complete and balanced recipe, then you need to follow the recipe. And that goes true for the supplements in that recipe, the meat in that recipe, right? You need to follow it. And that goes back to what I said before about people getting a recipe and then changing all of the components, and then they end up at the vet with their dog, right? So, yeah, so if you, and the flip side to that is you want to make sure that you're using a complete and balanced recipe. Do not get on Google and put in dog food recipe and then follow that. No, absolutely not. If you do that, we cannot be friends, okay? It will break my heart. I will cry. And you do not want to see me cry because I have a very ugly cry, okay? I'm very lighthearted and bubbly by nature. You do not want to make me cry, so please don't do that. I have free recipes in the group. It's going to be okay. Okay. Next question that I get is it expensive? Well, that depends. That depends on where you're sourcing your ingredients. There are a lot of different ways that you can save money. There are things called co-ops where you can buy in bulk. You can go to local ethnic markets. Asian markets are particularly fantastic. I recently made a video where I did a walkthrough showing all of the fantastic ingredients that you can get. So if you source your ingredients correctly, it can be very affordable, especially if you have a medium or small dog. It can be a little more challenging with larger dogs, especially if they have a chicken allergy. But for the most part, if you have a small dog, you can actually save money by feeding raw. Especially if you're opting for some expensive kibble, you really might want to look into it. So if you have 1 or 2 small dogs, it's definitely worth it to check it out. So is it expensive? Not necessarily. If you do your research, you can find a lot of really great options to help you save money. So I get questions on how to prepare it, right? So that people who are concerned about pathogens, bacteria, things like that, how do they prepare the food? Well, you would use the same safety precautions that you would if you were preparing raw meat to then cook for your family, right? You want a clean surface. You want to be using an antibacterial, antimicrobial soap, right? You want to make sure you're washing your hands. You can wear the food grade gloves if you want to, like the latex or rubber or, you know, any of that. You can wear gloves if you want to, so you don't have to wash your hands so much. I know we're all washing our hands like 20 gabillion times a day and they're super cracked and it's like, oh God, right? So you can wear gloves. That's totally fine. That makes cleanup a lot easier. One of the other questions that I get is, what about if your dog likes to take their food and tote it away? Okay, this is a big one. For those types of dogs, I recommend that you feed them either in a crate with nothing in the bottom, right? No bed or anything, or a towel, like a dog towel, right? That you could just very easily pull out and throw in the washing machine. Or if it's nice outside, you could feed them outside. I do like to do that in the summertime because, you know, the dogs can go and eat and do whatever. If you have a dog that likes to save their food for later, I don't recommend you do that because they might try to bury it in your yard, which is not fun. So, but you know your dog best. So you can opt for a crate, or you can make them a little pen, right? You can get an X pen, which are very lightweight. You know, you can store it in the closet when you're not using it, pull it out, put them in their pens so that they eat their food and not tote it all over your house. That's also a really great option if you have children or if you have elderly people in the home. Elderly people are not as likely, I would think, to reach down and touch raw meat. But children definitely. So if the dog is in a contained area, right, it's less likely for your kids to get into the food. Okay. So let me go through here because I saw some questions. Okay. We're scrolling. Okay, Joseph said, I'm sorry to ask this, but what is another brand of dog food that is budget friendly other than the Diamond Natural? So, Joseph, I feel you on this one. I had another brand option, but unfortunately their company had a recall. And anytime that there is a company recall, even though it wasn't for the food that I recommended, it was a completely separate line of food that they have that was much cheaper, and the ingredients were garbage. If a company has a recall, then I pull them from the list. So unfortunately, the only budget-friendly kibble that I have on the list right now is the Diamond Naturals. I am looking for another option. It's really hard. It's so hard, you guys. Like, the further down in price you go, the more challenging it is to find something that's quality, right? Because it gets harder to meet the criteria. One of the things that you can check out is the Blackwood 5,000 or 3,000 catfish. It's a little bit higher in carb than I would like, but the rest of the ingredients are pretty good. And I'm considering putting it on the list. So check out the Blackwood line. You can get it from chewy.com. They've got a couple of different options. So I haven't looked at all of them just yet, but I have looked at the catfish and I'm considering putting it on the list because I know that there are a lot of times that people need a budget-friendly fish food because of allergies and things like that. So yeah, so I would definitely check that out. They are having a ball out there. Okay, Allie says, totally off topic, I just got my new 8-week-old puppy. Congratulations. And I'm needing help trying to get my 1.5-year-old Pom getting used to the new puppy. Okay, so this is very common that people have this, especially with Pomeranians. So there are a couple of key things that you want to keep in mind. One, your adult dog is 1.5 years old, so they've had you all to themselves for, well over a year now. So this is going to be a process. So what you want to do is you want to kind of give them increments of time where they're with the puppy, they're playing with the puppy, interacting with the puppy, and then give them a break. This is good for your adult dog because then they can have some time with you. It's also good for your puppy because your puppy needs to sleep a good portion of the day. And the best thing you can do is have a designated space for them that is out of the high traffic area, right? So not in the living room or, where everybody is constantly. I like to use a place that you can close off, that you can turn the lights off, keep it quiet. You can set them up with everything they need, right? A crate or a pen, a bed, food and water, puppy pads, right? And you can put them in there and they can have quiet time. Now, for a puppy, this will be good for multiple reasons. One, it will encourage them to stop playing and eat their food, which is important because you don't want their blood sugar to drop. So that's one point. Also, you want them to be able to have time to rest in a quiet area because puppies who don't get enough sleep become very rambunctious and very cranky. And what they do is they are absolutely crazy when they play with the adult dog, and the adult dog is like, whoa, dude, whoa. You are too much. You need to calm down. And they end up getting frustrated with the puppy, but the puppy is amped up because he didn't have a nap and he's just and bouncing off the walls. And next thing you know, everybody hates each other, right? So, yeah, so plenty of sleep. Make sure they're eating well. Make sure they're in a quiet place away from everybody else. And that will help tremendously. Make sure you're giving your adult dog breaks. So they have time with the puppy, right, and time without the puppy. And just be patient. Just be patient. Sometimes it can take them, a week or two to really kind of warm up to the puppy. The other thing you can do that really helps if you have the type of Pomeranian puppy that just sounds vicious when they're playing, like they're like, right? And you're like, oh my God, puppy, what are you doing? If you have a puppy like that, which again is very common in Pomeranians, what you can do is after your puppy has quiet time, you can play with them. I highly recommend that you get a cat toy that has a little stuffed animal on the end, not the kind with the feather, but a little stuffed animal on the end, and you run that around like you would for a cat, right? Drag it on the floor and wear your puppy out, then have your puppy go and interact with the adult dog. So you've kind of burned off some of that initial energy so that when the puppy goes to be with the adult dog, they are much calmer. They still want to play, but they're not quite so over the top. And that can really help an adult dog and a young puppy bond because then they can have some more adult playtime rather than crazy psycho puppy playtime, which can be very intense. So yeah, be watching for those cues that your adult dog has had enough of your puppy, right? They're jumping up on furniture. They're trying to get away from them. They're giving them the side eye. They're like, right? So anyway, I hope that helps. Okay. Hey, Crystal's watching us from work again. She's getting in some overtime. Crystal, I feel like you're always working. Do you ever have fun? I need to know because you're always at work. Okay. Hey, she's got a question. So meat is getting stocked, but no luck on chicken thighs and chicken... Oh, is chicken breast a good substitution from the puppy meal you did on YouTube? So unfortunately, it's not. You need the dark meat because you need the fat content. Puppies have a higher fat content than, or puppies have a higher fat intake need than adult dogs, which is why it calls for the chicken thigh. So yeah, Yeah, unfortunately, you can't switch it out because chicken breast is significantly leaner. Hey, Emily's got a question. Okay, lots of questions. If they eat raw and then lick the kids. Okay, great question. I'm so glad you asked that. Okay, so the scientific community consensus is that dogs have the bacteria in their mouth to attack and kill off any pathogens that might be in the food. This usually takes anywhere from 20 to 35 seconds is what they say. So that kind of falls back to if you are feeding your dog raw and you have children, if you are feeding them, say, in a crate, then you just want to make sure that, you know, maybe while you're cleaning up, getting the bowl out of there, or if you're putting a towel down in the bottom and now you're going to wash that, that you just give them a few minutes before you then unleash them on the children. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it takes a very short amount of time. I have never heard of a child who became sick from their pet licking them and the pet being raw fed. It's kind of like when dogs eat poop, right? I know that's gross, right? You really don't want them to lick you after that. So, I would just recommend that you give the dog, you know, a few minutes. Maybe encourage them to drink some water. Maybe let them out in the yard. Let them run around, do their potty business, right? Then bring them in. Okay, we're good to go. So that was a great question. Okay, can the kids get salmonella or get them sick? Okay, yeah. So that's what I was referring to. So unless the kids are touching the raw meat, right? The actual raw components of the food and then putting their hands into their mouth, they're not going to get sick. Side note, there is also salmonella on kibble. So if your kids handle kibble, you definitely want them to wash their hands. It actually used to be, and this is one of the things that I love to tell people, it actually used to be mandated on the label of all dog food that if you handled the dog food that you need to wash your hands because there was a pathogen risk, but companies threw such a big stink about it because people would call them, you know, upset, obviously, or they let their babies, you know, play in the kibble bowl and, oh, look how cute, he's throwing the dog food everywhere, right? Well, baby sticks their hand in their mouth, baby gets sick. So they're not going to get salmonella. Just like you wouldn't let your kids handle the raw meat before you go to cook it, right, to make dinner. It's the same thing. You just need to have a conversation with them and say, hey, this is the dog food. We don't touch the dog food, right? If you touch the bowl, we need to use safe practices, wash our hands. I think it's great to involve children, especially in the education part, because that's how we're going to break the cycle of kibble is the only food that dogs eat, right? We didn't used to think that way. We used to feed them whatever we ate, but then it became, you know, this convenience factor. So anyway, I won't get off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Okay, the second part is there a raw, I think that's supposed to be, is there a way to feed raw, to buy in bulk that covers all nutrients that you recommend? So there are quite a few companies that, that do a pre-made raw. I have them on the recommended food list. My favorite is Answers. That's the name of the brand. But there are a bunch of them on there. If you're looking at a pre-made raw food, and this is another one of the issues that vets take with raw food, there are a ton of companies that have just sprouted up out of nowhere because raw feeding has become very popular. Because people are learning, hey, my dog with allergies, we're eating, we're putting them on raw food, and oh my gosh, they're like a totally new dog. So as they are trending up, there are all sorts of companies coming out of the woodwork that are creating foods that are not complete and balanced. And they have very tricky language because, again, these words are not regulated. So they can say, I actually looked one up in another live session because somebody requested it. I wish I remember the name of the raw food. So it'll say the complete chicken recipe, or the complete chicken meal, or complete chicken meal, right? Well, as a consumer, that would leave you to believe, oh, well, this is a complete food, when in actuality, it's not. Hey there.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah.
I came to get a clothes basket.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I'll scoot out of your way.
Okay.
Hang on. We're going for a ride. Okay, we're coming back. So, yeah, so you want to be very careful about the pre-made raw that you're using. You want to look very, very closely for the AFCO statement. It's usually on the back of a bag or the back of their, some of the raw foods come in a tube. We're falling over. Hey, quit it. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I came to get my phone, too.
Oh, okay. It's on the charger.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, look. It's Suze, everybody.
With my lovely hair.
Yeah. She's cleaning.
Well, I took my hat off.
Well, that's okay.
So my hair's all flattened.
It's all right. Friday night, you can let loose. Take your hat off.
All right. Happy weekend, everybody.
Okay. Now that we've been completely derailed, thanks, Suze. All right, let me pull this up here because I want you guys to see what I'm talking about. You can hear her out there talking to the dogs. Okay. Answers raw. Hold on, bear with me while I get this pulled up. Answers raw dog food. Here we go. Okay. Wow. So I typed it. This is so interesting to me. So I typed in answers raw dog food into Google. The very first thing that pops up is alternative to raw dog food, Blue Buffalo. Yeah, they had to pay. They had to pay to be in that spot. Okay, let me pull up. No, I don't want your advertisement. Pew, pew, pew. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Go back. Here we go. Products. Okay, so let's pull up the beef. Yeah, see, and this is one thing I love about Answers. They even have a safe handling notice, right? So it says, keep raw meat separate from other foods. Wash hands, surfaces, utensils, any other items that come into contact with raw meat with hot soapy water. Okay. Let me... Well, I'm trying to find it. All of these websites, it's very frustrating because they're so focused on advertising that they make it challenging for you to get to the information that you want. Okay. Bear with me. Hold on for one more day. Rebel Raw. I want to say that's one of the ones that I was asked to look at one time. Do they have a website? Website. They do have a website. Okay, so let's take a look at their dog food. Okay, so this is Rebel Raw. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing, so I'm just up on their website. And hey, look over here. There's one that says Complete and Balanced. Let's click on that. Okay, so they have an Angus beef mix complete plan. So let's click on that. Okay, here's what you're looking for. And hopefully that won't be backwards. If it is, I'm so sorry. I'm going to read it for you in just one second. So what you're looking for is that AFCO statement. And just in case it's backwards, what it says is, complete and balanced meal formulated to meet the nutritional levels established by AFCO, nutrient profiles for growth and maintenance stages. So what this means is this food is acceptable for puppies and adults. That's what that means. So you can't just rely on something to say complete or balanced, because they're using those terms as a marketing term now. So like I said earlier, they'll call it a complete chicken meal, but then when you go and look at it, there's no vitamins. There's no fruits and vegetables. Okay, well, how are you going to meet those nutritional requirements for those fruits, for those vitamins and minerals, if you don't have foods that other than just the meat and the bone and the organs, and you don't have any synthetic vitamins? Like it's got to be one or the other. So you have to be very careful, because many of these companies that are popping up are just for supplemental feeding. And that means that basically it's a topper. It's to be used in conjunction with a complete and balanced diet. So, back to Emily's question, because I got derailed. I'm so sorry. So can you buy in bulk that covers all the nutrients? Yes, you can. You don't have to do a DIY recipe like the ones that are in the files of the group. You can purchase a product that's got everything you need all in one. Many times you can even have it delivered to your home, right? For a lot of us that are working from home, that's very convenient because the box just drops off at your door. It's in a refrigerator box, and there you go. There's your raw food. So yeah, that's absolutely an option. You don't have to do DIY, but you just have to remember you're going to pay a little bit more for the convenience of having somebody else do it for you. So if you join raw feeding groups, you'll see that a lot of them end up purchasing grinders and follow complete and balanced recipes, and they end up doing it themselves because you can save a lot of money that way. Then you can buy your meat in bulk, you can buy your organs in bulk, you can get them from your butcher. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. A lot of butchers are now offering a dog food option. Again, you need to be very, very careful, because your butcher is not a canine nutritionist. So if they're not following a complete and balanced recipe, if they're just grinding up whatever they have, right, then you're going to need to know what to add on top of that. And that's where it becomes very complicated, because you can't just buy a meat, bone, organ mix and add a multivitamin and it's complete and balanced. It doesn't work that way. So, okay. Elsa says, hi, I'm interested in raw for my 11-month-old miniature schnauzer. Oh, I love schnauzers. How do I transition him from kibble to raw? That is an excellent question. So I recommend that you do a slow transition, especially if your schnauzer has never had anything raw before. So one thing that you can do, and one thing I encourage everyone to do, whether you want to transition to raw or not, is whenever you're cooking food for yourself, if you're having chicken, if you're having beef, if you're having whatever you're having, as long as it's not like bacon or sausage or some kind of processed meat, if you're having a whole meat, right, then cut off a little piece of that and give it to your dog as a treat, just while you're making your food, right? There's usually some pieces that you end up cutting off, right? Like for steaks, for example, that may have some sinew or ligament, right? That just makes a steak tough. If you like to trim those off, then cut a little piece off and give it to your dog. Now, I don't recommend that you give them a lot of fat, because that would be problematic. And we're going to touch on the diarrhea here in a minute, because like I said, it wouldn't be a live session if we didn't talk about poop. So, yeah, just give them a couple of little pieces. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And what their body will do is, A, they'll love you for it. Your dog's going to be super excited. And B, your dog's microbiome will start to adjust so that they are better apt to handle the raw meat. Now, the other way that you can do it is you can start maybe by giving them a treat, and then you can start slowly transitioning, right, their kibble and the raw food. So you can start with 25%, removing 25% of the kibble and inserting 25% of the raw meat, right, your raw mixture, whatever it is that you're using. So when you do that, anytime that you're transitioning, whether it's raw or not, I highly recommend that you purchase two things. I've got the hiccups, I'm sorry. One is pumpkin puree or pumpkin powder. I have links to both in my recommendations with links file that's in the files of the group. So that is going to help with keeping the dog's poo hard, right? Keeping it consistent, because while you're doing this transition, their body is going to need to adjust. And it just takes a little bit of time. It's not a huge deal, but you don't want to switch them over too fast, right? Because then they can have some digestive upset. So pumpkin puree or pumpkin powder. Now, I will say about pumpkin puree, please don't go to the pet store to buy pumpkin puree, because they will rob you blind. Okay, go to your grocery store, go to the baking section, look for, it's not pie filling, it's pumpkin puree. And when you look at the ingredients, it'll say 100% pumpkin. And buy that, it's super cheap. The other thing that you'll want to have on hand is called slippery elm powder, right? Or slippery elm bark powder. And what that does is it helps to maintain the lining of the intestinal tract for your dog. It can also reduce inflammation. So let's say they are having a little bit of digestive upset, right? Your pumpkin is going to help keep the poo firm, and then the slippery elm is going to help kind of boost up and make that intestinal wall stronger so that you don't have a diarrhea episode. So yeah, so you'll do, it's 25% each time you take the next step in the transition. So, for 3 to 5 days, you're going to do 25% raw food, and the rest will be their normal food, right? Which is usually kibble. And then after that period of 3 to 5 days, then you'll transition to a 50-50 ratio. Right? And you'll do that for 3 to 5 days. Again, it's really going to depend on how sensitive your dog is. I find that dogs that are much more sensitive, they need a longer transition time. So this is just a general guide. If you need to stretch it out and make it longer, let's say you're in the first part of the transition, you're on day 5, you go to 50%, and all of a sudden your poor doggy's butt just explodes. Okay, well, that was probably a little too much for them, so let's back it off, right? Let's go back to the 25%. Let's do that for a few days, get them on track, right? And then keep going. So don't be afraid to adjust this guideline based on your dog's needs, because you know your dog best. Okay, so 25%, 3 to 5 days. Then we're doing a 50-50 mix, 3 to 5 days. Then we're going to do 75% raw, 25% kibble, right? And now we're at sort of the end of our transitional period. So again, don't be afraid to tweak that. Use the pumpkin puree or pumpkin powder and the slippery elm. The slippery elm usually comes in a capsule that you can just open up and mix right into their food. It's very easy. So yeah, it'll really help you a lot. So yeah, and by the way, Elsa, you better post pictures of your schnauzer because holy cow, they're adorable. Okay, I just wanted to say that. Crystal said, my days off are Mondays and Tuesdays. That's actually pretty good. You can get a lot done on a Monday or Tuesday. Okay, Emily said, when they get raw food on their fur and mouth, how do you prevent it from getting all over the house? So that's a very good question. And there are some people, especially with dog breeds that have a lot of hair on the mouth. For example, a schnauzer, or in Emily's case, a doodle, or even a poodle. There are some people who like to take just like a pet wipe and wipe their face, right? Just takes like 2 seconds. I don't know that it's 100% necessary. It's really going to depend on what you feel comfortable with and how your dog tends to do things. For example, if you had a giant mastiff that was super slobbery and just like, I mean, when they eat or drink, it's just all over their face and their chest and everything. Okay, I get it. You might want to wipe them down. It's not a requirement. Again, there are a lot of people that, you know, it's not something that they do. They don't wipe their dogs at all. So it just depends. You have to keep in mind that a lot of meat, especially if you're doing a DIY raw where you're actually getting meat from the grocery store, most of that meat is not going to have any kind of pathogen or anything in it. As a matter of fact, what's funny with human products is most of the time it's the vegetables that end up having a problem because they use the poo to fertilize the vegetables, which is why you hear about all these E. coli and salmonella scares with lettuce, right? So you're actually more likely to run into an issue with something like that rather than an issue with the dog food. But it's completely up to you. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. So yeah, absolutely. You can wipe their face, use a pet wipe. It's totally fine. Okay. Paige has a question. Can you talk a little about your thoughts on HPP, which is high pressure processing? I feed Primal Raw and know they use HPP, whereas a brand like Answers does not. So this is one of those things where I don't really have an opinion. I know that's not what you want to hear. It really just depends on the person and how they feel about it. So the idea behind high pressure processing is that people are concerned that it kills off some of the nutrients, obviously because it's being processed. And my thing is, I don't think that it's going to do enough damage to the nutrients for it to be that much of a problem. And here's why I say that. So we as humans cook our food, right? We have to. We can't eat raw meat. We're not designed to do that. So when we cook our food, sometimes we're using grills that are like 400 degrees. And some people cook their steak well done, extra crispy. I mean, just ruin it, in my opinion. Right? But that doesn't cook out all of the nutrients. That steak doesn't then lose all of its iron, right? Or the amino acids. So it's one of those things where you just have to decide what works best for you. For example, if you were someone who had small children in the house and you were concerned about pathogens, then maybe something that's high pressure processed would actually be a plus for you. And you would be like, hey, okay, so you're still getting the benefit of raw, but it is slightly processed. So we are killing off some of the bacteria. That might be a plus. So it really depends on what your goals are, what your dog's needs are. Some dogs, they do better on something that's been processed because they need that little bit of help when digesting the food, especially if they're just starting out. So yeah, Paige, that's an excellent question. It's something that I just encourage people to research on their own and decide what's best for their dog. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is I don't want anyone to get boxed in on feeding just one thing from just one brand. I know it's very easy to do, it's very convenient, but you have to remember that variety is the key to optimal health. Use different brands. Maybe you use the Primal Raw for this month, and next month you switch to Answers. And then the next month, maybe you're using a freeze-dried raw. And then maybe the next month you're using a jerky style food, right? So don't box yourself in to just one option, because there are so many options on the market today. Just do your research and be smart about your choices. And it sounds like you're already doing both of those things. So Paige, high five. Boop. Okay. All right. I know we got some other questions. Let's see what we got here. I need my trusty Harry Potter mug because I am an alumni of Hogwarts. I'm a wizard. Okay, Danielle says, hey, just joined today. Fantastic. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining and becoming part of the pad footers. When switching to raw, do you still switch over slowly? Yes, absolutely. And is it okay to do when they are pregnant? Okay, great question. Danielle, high five. That was an awesome question. Okay, so pregnancy. This is a big one, especially for all of you breeders out there, or if you're considering breeding. So many vets will tell you not to change their food when they're pregnant. Mostly, this is because they don't want your dog to get diarrhea, right? Because that can cause a whole other slew of problems, right? So it can be challenging. But can you transition them to raw? Absolutely, you can. I highly recommend that you do it slowly. And remember what I said earlier, and Danielle, if I don't know when you joined, if you had missed it earlier, then you can go back and rewatch, so don't panic. But what you can do is you can do a slow transition, or you can even take it out even slower. Let me give you an example. So the last litter that we had, I noticed that the puppies were they were just draining her dry. They were like such little fat nuggets of love. It was adorable, but at the same time, I was like, okay, we have got to jump on this because she's going to start losing weight and you've got to get out ahead of it. So what I did was I made satin balls, which if you're not familiar, the recipe is in the files. It's a raw concoction that is very high calorie, that's designed to help females who are pregnant or nursing. It's fantastic stuff. And so, yeah, I just started giving very small pieces as a treat for a couple of days, see how she did. You always got to keep an eye on the poo. And then we slowly transition into, okay, so by the end of the week, we're like, okay, we're getting bigger pieces. And then by the following week, she was still doing well. So I was like, okay, great. Now we're doing full blown, like big old meatballs of meat and other things mixed in. So a lot of it is going to depend on your female. I have had some that you just give them just a little cube of raw chicken, and it was, the poor things, it was like their butt had a mind of its own. I don't know what was happening with that, but we had to go really slow. The other thing you can do if you have a female who has a very sensitive stomach is you can do the pumpkin puree or pumpkin powder. You can do the slippery elm or slippery elm bark powder. It comes in a capsule. And you can do a digestive enzyme. Now, digestive enzymes are not meant to be something that you give your dog every day for the rest of its life. I don't think that that's beneficial. You want to give their digestive system a boost, but you don't want it to become reliant on something else in order to process food. So you can start a digestive enzyme at any time, you know, if your dog is having challenges. So with a pregnant female, I would go ahead and start a digestive enzyme, especially if she has a sensitive system. And I would just start giving her little treats and see how she does. If she's doing well, great, let's amp it up. Let's give her a little bit more. Let's give her a little bit more, and then do a slow transition. The only time that I recommend a fast or immediate transition to a raw diet is for dogs that have extreme allergies, that are not pregnant, that have extreme allergies, and they are in physical pain from their allergies. I've had quite a few cases like that, and I just have a very real conversation with the owners, and I say, look, we gotta talk. Your dog is gonna have diarrhea. Your dog is gonna poop. Your dog is going to pop. But we have to do this because you can no longer feed what you're feeding. It is essentially toxic to your dog. So those are very, very extreme cases. Again, I don't recommend you do that with a pregnant female. There are some dogs who transition to raw very nicely, and you can do it over the course of a week. Like I said, it really depends on the dog. I have 2 poodles that I would have to transition them over a period of, 2 weeks. And I have 2 poodles who have stomachs of steel. I don't know what's going on, but they can eat anything, anytime. Their poop is perfect. It's great. I wish that I could just clone them. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Okay, Ashley said, so raw chicken is safe, okay, for dogs. Yes, it is. You can feed your dogs any meat that we eat, right? With the exception of processed meats, right? No lunch meat, no sausage, no bacon. If you're going to feed pork, then it needs to be lean pork. So really what you're looking for is a lower fat content. The same is true of beef. You want it to have a lower fat content. So, but yeah, you can give them raw chicken. That's totally fine. But what I don't recommend, and this kind of goes to my diarrhea conversation that I wanted to have, is I don't recommend that you go home from the grocery store, you're super excited, you got this big old, 4-ounce piece of raw chicken meat, you chop it up into pieces, and you throw it all in your dog's bowl. I don't recommend that you do that, especially if your dog has never had raw food before, because what I hear all too often is people will say, oh, well, I tried raw, but my dog just had diarrhea and it was terrible, and so I gave up. And then when I dig a little bit deeper, I find out that all they did was add one raw meat source to their kibble, and they added way, way too much, and the dog got sick, right? Just like if you were to start giving them canned food, or you started mixing in something else that they haven't had before, right? It's going to give them digestive upset. This is the downside of us as a society being conditioned that we need to have one brand of dog food. We need to feed that one brand of dog food. You got to get the puppy food and then transition it to the adult food and then transition it to the senior food. And you only stay with that one brand. You don't ever feed anything else. Don't change your dog's food. This is the result of that. Now our dogs are not designed to have the variety that they need. Right? Could you imagine eating the same thing every single day, day in, day out, and then having something different? Whoa! Right? That would be like the first time you tried some incredibly awesome, delicious, crazy, spicy food from some, restaurant you'd never been to, and then you go home and you're like, I don't feel so good, right? Because your body's not used to that. Now, we don't eat the same thing every day, all day, day in and day out, so our bodies are slightly more equipped to handle it, but we've done a disservice to our dogs because they're not. They need help. They need a transition. So ideally, and I talk about this more in my rotation video, ideally, you want to be rotating proteins and rotating carb sources and rotating brands and types of food. Again, don't put yourself in a little box, right? Vogue. So you want to be giving your dog variety so that you can build up that microbiome. So if you decide, hey, chicken's on sale, I want to add chicken to my dog's food, you can do that and their body can handle it. So that was a great question. Okay, off the topic of raw, great. I like off topic. What about fresh pet? Okay, so here's the challenge with fresh pet. And I really wish that they did better with all of their foods, because I would love, nothing would make me happier than to have a fresh food option that I could recommend to people that they could get at places like Walmart. Anyway, I won't get off on a tangent. There are 2 varieties of fresh pet that I can recommend that do not contain potatoes or peas. It used to be the Vital line. Vital was the name of it. But then they started including it in some of those, so I can't even say it's the Vital line. Basically what you have to do if you want to look at fresh pet is you just have to go and read the ingredients on every single tube, on every single bag, until you find the one, because they've changed it twice now. So I'm always leery of recommending it. Just if you want to do fresh pet, there are 2 things you need to keep in mind. 1, you need to read the ingredients every time and look for peas or legumes of any kind and potatoes, right? If it has it in it, no, move on to the next one. The second thing you want to keep in mind is, depending on the size of your dogs or how much you feed them, you want to buy appropriately for your dog's size. So what does that mean? Well, they have these big, huge, like 3-pound bags. If you can't use that up in a week, if you can't use that up in 4 days, don't buy it. Buy the smaller bag, because it goes bad so quickly. And I don't know if it's because they're not using any preservatives, or they use preservatives, but they're not as effective. I don't know if it's the packaging. I don't know. They have had mold issues. So if you If you get the tube kind of Fresh Pet, you need to be cutting it and checking it regularly because people have cut into it and there's mold in it. So yeah, it's one of those challenging things where the company started out really great and I was very excited, and they have really kind of gone downhill. So yeah, just some things to keep in mind with Fresh Pet. Okay, so, and Danielle said, so what about switching when they're pregnant? Is it okay? Yes, it is okay. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that earlier. Yes, it is okay. You just want to do it slowly and be prepared to add additional supplements that can be helpful. The pumpkin puree, the slippery elm powder, a digestive enzyme, all of those things can be very helpful when you're transitioning, whether your dog is pregnant or not, but specifically for a pregnant female. So yeah, you can change their food. I've had a lot of females that they've just decide, hey, I don't want to eat my food anymore because they're pregnant and they don't like anything. So I've had to get very creative. So yeah, absolutely you can. And then weaning with puppies. Yes, so I'm assuming you're asking if you can wean the puppies to raw. Absolutely, yes you can. And I am currently reading this book. Let me see if I can get the shine down. Natural Rearing, right? I'll have to include the link for this somewhere. So let me just zoom in here so you can see. This is the author. Yep. And I had to order this directly from her website, and it took a little while to get here. So I think what she does is she gets enough orders together for books and then has the books printed, which is very smart business plan. So, yeah, so far, I haven't finished this book yet, but so far, it's fantastic. And I highly recommend it. And I haven't even finished it yet. So, yeah, I would definitely check this out. If you remind me, there are a couple of other books that I have on my bookshelf that they have some information regarding weaning puppies to raw. So if you remind me, I'll definitely post those links as well so you can check them out. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that you want to wean your puppies to raw. That's fantastic. Okay, so it looks like I got to the bottom of the questions there. So I'm just going to come back to my list. Okay, so we talked about, will it make your dog sick? Why vets are against it? Can you substitute ingredients? Is it expensive? What if the dog totes off the food? Kids, raw, kibble. Puppies and raw? Yes, absolutely. Diarrhea. Hunger pukes. Okay. Next up on the list is hunger pukes. And I know that sounds terrible. So this is something that happens very commonly with dogs who are eating raw. It actually happens to dogs in general. But people tend to notice it with raw feeding because they feed their dogs on the same schedule that they fed kibble, but because the raw food is so nutrient dense and contains so much more moisture, the digestive system just picks it up and goes, yeah, this is great. And it moves right through the digestive system beautifully. What that means is you may run into instances where your dog throws up. Usually it's clear or like a yellow bile kind of color. And they're acting like they're hungry. Whereas on kibble, they wouldn't. Well, this is because they have digested all of that food. So what you may need to do, if that's the case, is you may need to increase the number of feedings. That's one option. You may need to change the timing of their feedings. For example, if you have a dog that's throwing up every morning at 8 a.m., and you normally feed them at 9 a.m., well, you may want to run that back a little bit, maybe feed them a little bit earlier so that right? They don't have the hunger pukes. And you may need to adjust the amount of food that's being fed. So those are kind of the things that you'll need to work through. And again, it's really going to depend on the dog. There is a little bit of trial and error when it comes to hunger pukes. You just kind of got to figure out, okay, is this happening every day? Is it happening at a certain time of day? Right? Was my dog more active this day? And then they had a hunger puke. Did they spend all day at doggy daycare and then they came home and had a hunger puke, right? So you just kind of got to try to find the consistencies. The other thing that's very, very helpful to people who are transitioning to raw or new to raw is to have a dog food journal. Get yourself a cute little notebook, put it wherever you want, right, in your kitchen, and take note of what you notice with your dog, right? Maybe they don't like chicken necks, but they like turkey necks. Well, you can make yourself a note of that. Maybe they don't like liver. I run into this issue a lot. People contact me and they're like, oh my gosh, no matter what I do, my dog won't eat liver. Okay, so maybe you make a note of that, and I show you in one of my videos, one of the tricks that you can do is blend the liver with frozen berries and sardines, which I know sounds gross. I'm so sorry, but dogs love it. So you can blend the liver with the berries and the sardines, and it actually covers up the flavor. Then mix that into your raw food, and then your dog might eat it. So if you do your little dog food journal, you may notice some consistency, right? Or inconsistency. You'll have a better idea of what your dog likes and doesn't like, right? Maybe your dog, you notice that you're putting down your food, but the dog is not eating it right away. They don't come back and want the food until an hour later. Okay, well, maybe it's too cold, right? We keep our foods refrigerated, of course. So maybe bringing that food to room temperature before it's time to feed your dog, maybe you would have better results, right? And you can track all of that in your journal. So I highly recommend a feeding journal. It can be very helpful. It can also be very helpful for people who are doing an elimination diet, trying to figure out if their dog has an allergy to something. You would be surprised how challenging it can be to go back in time 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks and go, did my dog have a reaction to that? Well, if you've got your journal, right, you can go back and look at it. So, okay, Keisha has a question. So my Peanut, and of course cats now, don't eat all of their food at feeding. I give each cat half a can, which is 5 ounces. Then Peanut gets a third can of Nature's Logic. I feed everyone twice a day because I work crazy hours, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. God bless ya. If I'm lucky, and I'm afraid if I feed less, they won't get their required caloric intake. Okay, so cats can definitely be challenging. You know, they love a food 1 minute, they hate it the next minute. They want to eat it in the morning, then they don't want to eat it until noon, right? It can be challenging. So I would say just do the best you can. Just do the best you can. If you know that you're going to have a particularly long day, if I'm not sure if that's something that you know, are aware of before you go to work, what you might do is, assuming that everybody mentioned here is an adult, right, including the cats, you could fast them, right, skip a meal the night before, so that they will absolutely eat that next morning, that you know you're going to have a really long day, and then you could feed them again at night. Again, you only want to do that if they're adults, and if it's going to be multiple days in a row, you know, I don't recommend doing it every day, but that is something that you can do. A lot of people have said that they will purposefully fast their animals, and that they've seen some health benefits from it. I don't have any research on that, so I can't speak to that from a scientific standpoint. But you could fast them, 1 or 2 nights a week, and it certainly would not hurt them at all. So I would say don't panic about the food. The other thing is, Keisha, if you are in a very, very cold climate, try adding a little bit of hot water or warm water to the food just to kind of warm it up a little bit and see if they'll do it then. Because we had some really ridiculously cold days here, and it was just crazy in our house. Like, nobody wanted to eat. And I told Suze, I was like, you know what? We should really make some chili. We should make some mashed potatoes. Like, you really want those warming kind of comfort foods. And then it dawned on me, and I was like, we should do the same thing for the dogs. So what I did was I put a little bit of warm filtered water in their water dish, so it kind of brought it up a little bit from room temperature. And then I also put warm water in their food to kind of warm that up a little bit. And everybody scarfed it down. You would have thought that I had just given them Turkish delight. They were licking the bowls. They were sucking down the water. They just wanted something warming. And I completely understand, because I was feeling the same way. So that you might want to try that. That might work. Oh, Keisha said, I've done that, and Peanut will sometimes eat everything, and the cats look at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, cats are just like that. If you have a place that you can put the cat food to leave it out that the dog can't get to it, you can absolutely do that. I mean, I know that it's not ideal to leave food out all day, but cats are very good about when something has reached its expiration point, they're not going to touch it. A dog, it depends on the dog, but for the most part, cats are very good about that. So if you have somewhere maybe up high that you can leave the food, right, and then deal with it when you get home, you can do that. So yeah, sorry. I know that's not super helpful, but it can just be challenging sometimes to get everybody to eat all of their food. Okay. All right, let me look at my list here. Okay, we talked about hunger pukes. We talked about what to look for, right? On the labeling, you want to make sure that it says it's complete and balanced. It's got the AFCO statement, and it tells you for what life stages it is, right? So all life stages means it covers puppies, or it may say that it covers growth, which also means puppies. It may say growth and lactating females. Okay, great. It may say maintenance, right? That's adults only. It may say intermittent feeding. That means that it's not complete and balanced, that it's really just more of a topper. And if it has no statement at all, then you should treat it as a topper, because more than likely it's not complete and balanced. Okay, Keisha said, would it be safe to microwave the food for a few seconds? Yes. Yeah, that would be fine. I would just say be careful, right? Obviously, you don't want to make it too hot, because then you're just going to be taking up time, right, in the morning, having to wait for it to cool down to then give it to them. So, but yeah, you could nuke it for a few seconds and it would be fine. I'm always trying to sneak in more moisture. Got tongue-tied there for a second. So that's why I recommended the hot water method, but if you want to microwave it, you can. You just need to be careful, because if you're feeding a raw that contains bone, then you really want to steer clear of cooking it in any kind of way because you cannot feed cooked bone. So just keep that in mind. Okay, great. Well, if anybody else has any questions, drop it down there in the comments for me. Let me check. What did I just do? Losing my mind here. Let me check the Facebook post just real quick to make sure I covered everybody's questions that they asked earlier, because I did ask people to comment their questions. Okay. Going down the list. Oh, here's a great question. Would it be a good option if you could feed kibble for one meal and then feed raw for the second meal? Absolutely. Again, you don't want to put yourself in a box. You can do any kind of combination you want. You can mix, oh, here's a good one. You can mix raw and kibble together. You will see all over Facebook that people will be like, you can't mix them together because they digest at different rates. Okay. They did a study on this. It's a difference of 20 minutes, which is almost non-existent. Not even worth mentioning. So you can mix raw and kibble together. It's not a big deal. Okay. Let me go and find my post. Here we go. Okay. Okay, here's a great question from Matthew. What advice would you give with starting a puppy off with homemade dog food? Would you do trial and error to see what they like and don't like? We're getting our puppy in 2 weeks. Congratulations. And I have a plan out the gate with some things, and I looked up in the announcements and files. Great. But was looking for a cheat sheet. Okay. I should make a cheat sheet. That would be very good. So advice for starting a puppy off with homemade food. Definitely make sure you're, right, you guys know I preach this, complete and balanced recipe. You can find them in the files. Very easy to do. It's not complicated. I actually have videos, and I did a live cook with me on my YouTube channel that shows you step by step how to put the food together. It's not hard. It's not complicated. You can make big batches of food, store those in your freezer, and then, thaw them out as needed, right? You put them in your fridge the night before, they thaw out, bada bing, bada boom, you got food the next day. So you can really be efficient with the raw feeding. It just takes a little bit of practice. And as far as, what was the other part? He was wanting a cheat sheet. Oh, trial and error to see what they like and don't like. Yeah, absolutely. Try different proteins, try different brands. Again, like I said, don't put yourself in a box. So see if they like duck, see if they like pork, see if they like rabbit, see if they like, right? So the only kind of caveat to that is I would say don't get crazy. If you have a puppy, there's no reason to feed them kangaroo, emu, wild boar, right? You don't need to go that far exotic. Those types of foods are vital for dogs that have serious allergies. And you don't want to start out your puppy by, going that far exotic. So try to keep it, a little more reasonable, close to home. But yeah, give them a variety. Let them try different things. I think it's great. It keeps them from getting bored, and you can have fun with it. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, and that was it for the questions on there. So we got a couple questions here. Paige said, thank you for everything you do. You are very welcome. Okay. Let's see. what about Dr. Martin's raw? Okay, and then Danielle had a question. So, there's so many vets making food now that I honestly just can't even keep them straight. So, what did we say it was? Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin. Dog food. Ah, yes. Oh, Dr. Marty? Linda, is that what you meant? Dr. Marty? He's got the green bag. The guy that makes all the videos. This one. Let me know, Linda, let me know if that's the one that you mean. Yes, Linda said yes. Thank you. Okay. So, Dr. Marty's, if I remember correctly, I want to say that he either had legumes or potatoes in the food. Hang on. It would help if it would let me zoom in. There's the ingredients. This thing is just jumping around all over the place. Come on. What a terrible website. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to touch it. Yeah. Okay, so, Linda, this one's not going to be approved. And let me tell you why. So we go through the ingredients. Turkey, beef, duck, salmon. Okay, so first of all, that's a lot of proteins all in one food. That means that when you transition your dog to another food, that the only options it leaves you is chicken and lamb and pork and rabbit. Right? So you want to try to keep your proteins, if you're going to feed a processed food, you want to try to keep your proteins to 1 or 2, right? You don't want to have quite so many all in one food. Beef liver, turkey heart, flaxseed, sweet potato. Okay, so right there is your disqualifying ingredient. Then we go on to egg, pea protein. There's your second disqualifying ingredient. And then the rest is fruits and vegetables and a preservative. So, yeah, so I don't recommend it. Which is disappointing because A, it's from a vet, and B, because all of the other ingredients look really good. But unfortunately, because it contains legumes and potatoes and the risk of DCM, which is dilated cardiomyopathy, because the studies have not yet been completed and they probably won't be completed for another 2 to 3 years, I don't recommend that you feed anything that has those ingredients in it. So yeah, it's unfortunate. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is pretty standard ingredients for a freeze-dried food, but it is ridiculously expensive. 3 bags is $170, and that's for 16 ounces of food. You can get the 1 pound bags of, somebody's scratching on the door. The 1 pound bags of the Vital Essentials freeze-dried, which has fantastic ingredients and no problematic ingredients in it. And you can get those for, $20 on sale on Chewy.com. So yeah, so if you're looking to do a freeze-dried, I would recommend doing that one over this one, both for cost savings and because this has problematic ingredients. Okay, Keisha said, oh, sorry, got to go back to Danielle. Okay, Danielle said bone or no bone? Well, what do you mean? Do I recommend giving raw meaty bones? Absolutely. There's a document in the files that tells you all about different raw meaty bones, how to choose them based on your dog's size and their intensity level as far as chewing goes. So raw meaty bones are great. I don't recommend load-bearing bones. So you'll see that some people have like femur bones and marrow bones and things like that. I don't recommend those. I don't recommend raw bones that have been cut. So you'll see them at various grocery stores and things like that. Those are great for making bone broth. They are not great for your dog to chew on because they have sharp edges which can cut the gums, or they can break a tooth when they're chewing it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, then let me know what you mean by bones, and I'll jump on it. Okay, Keisha says, how do you suggest to rotate proteins as Peanut will really only eat beef? I've tried chicken, turkey, lamb, and pork. He gives me the side eye when it's not beef. Yeah, some dogs just really have their preferences. Honestly, I'm happy that if he's gonna choose one, it's beef, because beef has a lot of iron. It has some good amino acid content to it, as compared to other meat sources. So I'm happy that he likes beef. You could try some other beef type foods. Venison has a pretty strong flavor. You could try bison if you wanted to, but really if he eats beef, he likes beef, that's all he wants is beef, you have to feed the dog that's in front of you. So while rotation may be great as an idea, it may not work for Peanut specifically. The other thing you can do is you can rotate some of the other ingredients that maybe he's not as picky about. For example, maybe you could add the Answer's fermented fish stock to the food, or you could add in a goat's milk. Maybe he would like that. Then maybe after you try those for a while, you could try giving him some different veggies to see if he likes those. Does he like broccoli? Will he eat kale? Right? So you can try to get some variety in there in other ways. It doesn't just have to be the proteins. That's just usually, how people pick their food is based on the protein. Okay, great. Ooh, Katie's got a good question. How safe are beef hoofs for POMs? So Katie, you get a gold star tonight because I was actually just dealing with this with my dogs, the standard poodles specifically. So hoofs can be a great chew. They can also be a little bit challenging sometimes. What I mean by that is sometimes dogs will work them and pieces will come off. And then they eat those pieces, and because they're so dense, it takes them quite some time to digest it. Then they may not want to eat their food, right? They may not want any treats. They may just be feeling kind of blah, right? So are hoofs okay? Yes. You should always give them under supervision. If you have a very aggressive chewer, then that may not be the best option for your dog. You may want to go with something like a trachea or a bully stick or a beef lung, right? Dehydrated beef lung, buffalo scapula. Those might, you hear them going crazy out there? They're having a blast. So, those may be a better choice for your dog, but it really just depends on how your dog chews. So yeah. So can you give them? Yes. Are they safe? Technically, yes, but it really depends on your dog and how aggressive of a chewer they are. I've had dogs that were, you know, serious, they took to chewing like it was their number one job and they got paid a lot of money to do it. They would just chew until something was gone. If your dog is like that, then I don't recommend a hoof, because it'll just be challenging for you. So, but that was a great question. Okay, and Danielle said, or like chicken bones in food. So, yeah. So if you're doing like a DIY raw, let's say it calls for a chicken wing, right? Then you would just give that to the dog. I recommend for new raw feeders that if you're feeding anything that has a bone like that, that you, somebody's crying at the door, hang on, that you hold it in one hand and then let them chew at the other. Here, hang on. Oh, the gate's open. Oh, great. Now they're all in here. Hey, come on. You guys. It's a stampede. Come here. Kennedy. Hey, come on. Guy. Oh, Shazam, you didn't make it. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, gosh. I don't know. It's crazy in here. Kennedy. Oh, boy. Hey. What are you guys doing? No, that's what I was afraid of. No. Come here. Come here. Hi, can I have that? Come here. Good girl. Let me have it. No socks. Drop it. Good girl. Nope. Okay, hang on, guys. Panic at the Disco. Nope, no socks. Okay, hi. You guys are crazy. You guys, this is my life. Right here. Hi. This is my life. Okay, come on. Y'all come on here. Come on. Come on. Hey, babe, can you grab them? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, that was fun. Now you see why I try to come in the bedroom and I don't have any dogs in here when I'm trying to film, because they think it's playtime. It's like, hey, it was a play. Anyway, that was too funny. Okay. I think I was talking about bones before I was distracted. So Katie said, oh my God, I love your babies. Thank you. I love them too. I love them so much it hurts. Like they're just so great. I'm going to do some intro videos to talk a little bit more about their personalities and things like that. Anyway, it's going to be fun. So what I was saying is, especially for those that are new to raw feeding, I recommend that if your recipe calls for a turkey neck or a chicken wing or something that your dog hasn't had before, that you give them one end of it, you hold the other, and let them chew it. And what this does is, especially for big dogs, is it keeps them from getting overly excited and then scarfing all the food down and just swallowing it whole. Now, if that happens, don't panic. It's okay. So as long as your dog doesn't choke, right, which is bad under any circumstances, they can swallow a large piece of bone and be okay. If that happens, what I recommend is that you fast them for their next meal, right, so that their body has time to work through that bone. But yeah, but I like to, I'll just hold it. Let's say this is the bone, right? So I give them this end, I hold it at this end, and just really encourage them to chew, and they'll kind of get back there on those molars and really crunch it up and break it down. Poultry bones specifically are very soft when they're raw. So if it's blended into a food, if it's a whole piece, like if you're giving them a chicken wing, it's very easy for them to chew it and break it down. So I hope that helps. Let me go back. Okay, chicken bones, yeah. Uncooked, of course, yeah. Chicken necks, chicken wings, legs, yes. Depending on the size of your dog, and again, my document about bones and healthy chews, there's 2 documents. Those will really help you to choose the right size based on the size of your dog. So, for example, a Pomeranian would do really well with a chicken neck, whereas a standard poodle would do really well with a turkey neck, right? So the size difference makes it more appropriate. Hey! Stop it! They're always yelling at me, those dogs. Okay, so the size difference, right, makes it more appropriate for your dog. If you have a smaller dog, you can always opt to give them a bigger bone. They just may not finish it. So I have a really cute video of a 6-week-old Shih Tzu puppy that's eating a chicken neck, and it is like so huge compared to their mouth, but they are just like going to town, just really ripping it up. Anyway, I'm gonna insert it into one of my videos. It's absolutely adorable. Okay, great. Okay, Katie says, I have a pit also who's an aggressive chewer, so I should keep the hoofs away from her then. Yes. Yeah, that's one of those things that, yeah, you know, pits, they've got that awesome jaw strength that, yeah, I would not let her have a hoof because it's going to last all of 2 seconds. So in that case, I would definitely go with something like a trachea, a bully stick. Again, they're going to go through it very quickly, but there's much, much less risk involved. Everybody, I'm seeing all the comments where this is where the dogs ran in. Everyone was like, oh my God, they're so cute. I love them so much. Okay, Katie said, is any type of grain good for dog digestion? I have some friends who say dogs need grain. Okay, so this is one of the common misconceptions that's going around. Let me start off by saying that grain is not the enemy. It's also not the cure-all. So here's where this started from, just so you can have a better understanding so that when you talk to your friends, you know, you can have an educated conversation about it. So where this started was with the whole DCM issue, right? Dilated cardiomyopathy. And what they first noticed when dog food companies and the FDA and they all got together and put out these documents that were incomplete and just absolutely scared the crap out of pet owners everywhere. What they said was that dogs, you know, that grain-free diets were the problem, that they were causing these issues. And that dogs, that slowly evolved into dogs need grain. Okay. So let me tell you that definitively, from a nutritional standpoint, dogs do not have a nutritional requirement for grain. Okay? So they don't have to have it. It doesn't have to be in their diet. And they can 100% thrive and live a long and healthy life and never have a grain. And they would be perfectly fine. So they are carnivores, but they are not obligate carnivores. For example, cats, obligate carnivores, right? They cannot digest grains, which is why all of the really horrible foods with like corn and all that stuff in it is just terrible for cats. Anyway, I won't get off on a tangent. So they say dogs need grain. This was the marketing genius backlash of the FDA saying that grain-free food is the problem. So FDA says grain-free food is the problem. Marketing gurus go, okay, we're gonna claim that dogs need grain. And then we're gonna pump our foods full of it so that people will then come and buy our food. And we're gonna call them, we're gonna call them ancient grains. And we're gonna put them in our food. We're gonna call them super duper grains. We're gonna call them unicorn grains. We're gonna call them the best grains that ever lived. Humans can't even eat them. They're so good grains, your dog has to have it. And we're gonna put it in the food. And then people are gonna go buy it because they're being told that grain-free food is bad. So here is where everybody mentioned went wrong. Grain-free is a marketing gimmick. It's a marketing term. There have actually been groups who have gone through and analyzed, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of dog foods, and found that some of these grain-free foods actually have grain in them. Because no one is regulating these terms, you can call a dog food whatever you want. I can say that my dog food is grain inclusive with ancient grains. Grains cultivated and planted on the moon, right? I can make any claim that I want, slap it on a bag, and sell it for, $65 a bag. So this was compounded by vets telling people, don't feed grain-free food. And it's one of my hugest pet peeves when it comes to vets. And I love when they say this to me in my appointments, because I will 100% lay the smack down and correct them and say, it's not grain-free. You can't look at the front of the bag. You have to look at the label. You have to read the label and know what you're reading. You have to learn the ingredients. So it doesn't matter if it says it's 90% meat on the front of the bag. If you turn it around and there's one meat source and, 5 different carbs or 5 different grains, oh, okay, well that food is not going to be 90% meat or 95% meat when it's got that much grain in it. But they're allowed to do that. There is no regulatory entity over pet food that dictates, hey, you can't make this claim. If your food is grain-free and you label it as such, it actually has to be grain-free. There is no such rule. And pet food companies like it that way. So, back to the original question, which is any type of grain good for dog digestion? Yes, there are lots of grain options that can add a number of benefits to dogs, right? Oats, millet, barley, all of these things, even rice in some cases. So they have pros and they have cons, right? As with anything in life, they're not 100% good 100% of the time. If you have a dog who is grain sensitive or is allergic to or has an inflammatory response to rice, well, then rice would not be a good grain for them. So it really just depends on the dog. It depends on the grain. It also depends on how much of the food, the grain, right? How much of the food consists of grains. If you've got a food that's 50, 60, 70% carbs, that's crazy. That's way out of whack. Your dog does not need all of those carbs. So what we've done is we've transitioned from grains that could be helpful given the right circumstances to, whoa, we've got way too many in the food. That's why I say, if you're looking at dog food, ideally you should only be choosing one that has one grain in it, which is, one grain or starch, but it's so hard to find. It's so hard to find because they're cheap. For the same reason that companies use a lot of corn, because it's cheap. It's cheap as dirt. They get the corn and the grains that's not fit for consumption by feed animals. What are feed animals? Those are the animals that humans consume. So cows, pigs, right, sheep, all that. So the grains that are going into the dog food are grains that were not approved to be used as feed for animals that humans consume. Just let that sink in. Because there are a lot more regulations when it comes to the feed of the animals that humans consume. There is a ton of regulations. You can't feed them this. You can't feed them that. It has to be this certain quality. It can't have all this mold in it, right? All of these things. For pet food, there are no such rules. None. If they want to put roadkill in pet food, they can do that. There is no rule or regulation or law to stop them. And if you see things that are labeled animal digest or animal protein, what do you think that animal is? Why does it not say beef or chicken or lamb? That's because they don't know. It's rough. If you look into it, you can go down a very, very deep rabbit hole. It is shocking. So if you are interested in more information on that, I know, Katie, I took your question and way went off the deep end. But if you're interested in more information about the rules and regulations and what goes into pet food and the real quality of it, there is a book. It's called Foods Pets Die For. It's actually been out for a very long time. There was a woman who started digging really deep into all of this, and she found out some really, really scary practices about what goes into pet food. So you can also watch the video. It's actually free right now on Amazon Prime, but you can also find it for free where people have recorded it on YouTube. It's called Pet Fooled. It's got a yellow background with a dog and a cat holding a bowl. Pet Fooled. I absolutely recommend that you watch Pet Fooled. I think it should be a requirement that everybody watch it before they're allowed to get a pet. It's really good. The second edition of that movie is actually going to be coming out at some point. I'm hoping this year. So I highly recommend that. Okay, good. Also, I'm concerned that I'm feeding my 6-month-old Palm too much. She gets 1/4 cup 3 times a day. Is that way too much? She's always hungry. Okay, so it's hard for me to tell based on the measurements because I would need to know the food that you're feeding and what they recommend. What I will say is that at 6 months, between 6 and 8 months, puppies go through another growth phase. They may start growing their coat. In the instance of Pomeranians, they may shed their coat and start growing. They get, I call it getting leggy, where they kind of sprout their legs and then their body has to catch up. So, so she may just be going through a growth spurt. She may be super active right now. All of those things can factor into how much food to feed. I do have a video on how to tell if your dog is overweight. So I highly recommend that you take a look at that. And if your dog is not overweight, which I'm guessing they're probably not, then you can absolutely feed more. Just if you're going to add more, add a little bit at a time. And don't add it to every single feeding. Maybe do a little bit more if you're noticing she's hungrier in the evening, right? Or maybe first thing in the morning, then add just a little bit more at that feeding and then see how that goes. And then if you notice that she starts gaining weight, okay, then you can back it back down to what you had before. So yeah, I hope that helps. Just remember that feeding guidelines on pet food products are just guidelines, right? And like I said earlier, you have to feed the dog that's in front of you. Okay, perfect example, Kennedy. She is like 90 miles an hour, super excited, very athletic, extremely athletic. She eats way more than what's recommended for her age and her size, but she's also burning way more calories, right, than their, guidelines. They're not taking into account that she's got 3 other poodles to play with and they're doing laps around the yard like it's, Indy 500, right? So you kind of have to do some trial and error, and that's okay. And if she gains a little bit of weight, that's okay. It'll come off just as fast, especially with a puppy, because they burn energy like it's nothing. Katie's laughing at my ancient grains. Yeah, that one kills me. I don't know who was the marketing genius that came up with that, but kudos to them for ancient grains. I want to come out with a food and call it something absolutely ridiculous. People have asked me before if I would make a dog food, and I said yes, I would, but it would be expensive because the ingredients would be so high quality, and the name of it would be something absolutely ridiculous. Okay. Okay, Donna says, it's yearly vet appointment time. I always get anxious during this time. Vaccines or no vaccines? Excuse me. That's a good question. I've heard rabies is one of the worst vaccines to give your dog. I'm so confused. So, Donna, this one it's a challenging question. And it's really going to depend on your dog and what you feel comfortable with. So what I like to tell people is you are not confined into doing a yearly appointment and giving booster shots. What you can do is you can go in and ask for a titer test. A titer test is where they draw blood work and they send it off to a lab. And what they're doing is they're checking the level of immunity or immune response that the body has to certain things. For titer testing, it's probably going to run, around $100. It really depends on your vet and how much they want to gouge you for it. So you may want to call ahead of time and ask them, hey, I'd like to bring my dog in to draw blood for titer testing. How much does that cost? Ask them if they send it off or if you have to send it off. You can absolutely send it in yourself. It's very easy to do. I think UC Davis is one of them that does it. There are quite a few universities that do it, that it's not that expensive to send it in on your own, right? Not from a vet. A lot of vets don't like to do the titer testing, or they give you a bunch of crap about it, right? Because they make money off of you coming in and getting those booster shots. So, and right now I'm just referring to the booster shots. As far as rabies goes, you can titer test for rabies, but most counties will not accept a titer in replace of an actual rabies shot. Some counties do, so you'll need to check, with your county to see if they accept it. The other thing about titer testing, which can be fantastic, is you may find that while you spend $100 to $180 on titer testing every 2 years or so, you may find that your dog doesn't need any more shots. The latest research is showing that many of these shots, after being given one time, can last anywhere from 7 to 9 years. Just think about that, 7 to 9 years. Your dog is good to go, doesn't need any more shots, but we're still vaccinating them? Why are we doing that? Well, it's challenging because, it's part of the framework of a business, right? For the same reason that most vets don't do an ovary sparing spay or a vasectomy, even though the studies have been out since 2003 that clearly state that it is way healthier to do an ovary sparing spay or a vasectomy to prevent unwanted pregnancies than it is to remove the hormones, which can cause problems. 2003. And there are still vets out there that are doing spay and neuter on puppies and kittens. So they don't even have a chance. They don't even have a chance to grow up and have correct growth plate structure and closing. And again, I don't want to get off on a tangent. I'm sorry, Donna. I'm coming back down. You struck a nerve. Okay, so do you vaccinate? I can't tell you what to do because it really depends on the dog. I will tell you what I do. I have puppies. I get their puppy vaccines. I get their 3-year rabies shot, which is the other option that a lot of vets don't tell you about. You don't have to come in and get it every year. You can do a 3-year. And then I titer test as adults so that we don't do boosters. I don't board my dogs at facilities that require a kennel cough shot or Bordetella every 6 months. I think that's ludicrous. I don't use grooming facilities that require that your dog have, the latest boosters and they ask for an update every year. No, thank you. So it's not hard to do. It can be done. And side note, Donna, I don't know how old your dogs are. I also have a senior who is 10 plus years old. We don't know exactly how old he is. He was a rescue. We don't do any boosters on him. None whatsoever. He has sensitive skin. He has patella issues. It's hard to keep weight off of him. Like, he has so many challenges that I am just not going to pump him full of chemicals every year. Now, this is where some people get angry with me, but Donna, I am specifically telling this to you because I like to be honest with people. I do not get a rabies shot for him. His going outside consists of going out into our yard. That's pretty much it. The most excitement he's had in the last year is when we went on vacation and we went to Suze's mom's house and he was there in her yard. That's it. He doesn't go on walks. He doesn't, he's an old man. So if my vet reported me for not getting a rabies shot for him, then what happens is they send you a notification, usually a letter in the mail, that says you have X amount of days to get a rabies shot for your dog, otherwise you have to pay a fine. So I have decided, or Suze and I have decided, I should say, that we will wait until, if that day comes that we get that letter in the mail, then we will take him and go and, do what we have to do, get a rabies shot. But until that point, I'm not going to subject him to it. He's a small dog. He's got health issues, right? His risk is like 0.1%. Like, it's so low, it's ridiculous. So that's what I do. You'll just have to make that choice for yourself. Nobody knows your dog like you do, including your vet. Not to say that your vet is not on your side. I'm just saying that you know your dog. So what you have to do is you have to trust your gut, do your research, and your dog is relying on you to be their health advocate. So if you're not ready for that yearly appointment, or you're feeling anxious about it, or you want to do some more research, or you're not comfortable giving shots right now, just cancel the appointment. Just cancel it, reschedule it for another time, or don't reschedule it at all until you've done your research and you feel better and more confident in whatever decision you decide to make. And more importantly, Donna, I support you in whatever decision you make. Because, like I said, nobody knows your dog like you do. So, yeah. But I love that you're asking questions. I love that it's something that concerns you. It speaks volumes about the type of pet parent that you are. And I send you super big hearts because I love you for that. So. Okay, Katie said, so grains in moderation, but not in their everyday food. It can be in their everyday food. That would be fine. That would be fine. Again, depends on the dog, depends on how many grains. Are you doing a rotation? Are you feeding the same thing, same brand, same grains? There's 5 grains in it. You've been feeding it to them for 3 years. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you are. I'm just giving you an example. So all of those things kind of play a factor. This is where I was talking about all of the ingredients in dog food. Everybody's giving me vomity faces. Yeah, it's bad. Keisha said, Pet Food really made me look at how I feed my pets. Great documentary. I agree. I feel like it had some cheesy moments, but I understand that they need to reach a very broad audience to try to kind of encompass everybody. But yeah, it's excellent. I love it. Okay, great. Oh, Donna said she has a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old Poms. Yeah, so Let me ask you this, Donna. Are your dogs having any issues? Are they having any problems that they need to go to the vet for? Or is this just a booster shot appointment? Let me ask you that. $200 for rabies titer. Yeah, sometimes vets, they'll make it, a little pricier. I would hope that for $200 they would send it in for you and then send you the results. Hey, Ashley's here. Hi, Ashley. Okay, great. Oh, no. Okay, Bridget says, now I feel guilty for getting my little guy neutered. Okay, so I'm sorry. I know I get off on a tangent sometimes, and I'm very, very passionate. And so, Bridget, I am sending you super big hugs right now because it was not my intention to make you feel guilty. We rely on our medical professionals to tell us what the best course of action is. We rely on our vets to say, hey, let's hold off on neutering and let's see how your boy's doing at a year old. Let's see how he's doing at a year and a half. Let's see how he's doing at 2 years. Okay, then maybe let's neuter, right? So when and I just went through this with my vet, so it breaks my heart. I'm taking in Kennedy for, her last round of puppy shots. She's not even 4 months old. And the vet's like, okay, so yeah, when are we going to schedule that C-section? Sorry. When are we going to schedule that spay? And I'm like, no spay. Why would we spay? She's not even 6 months old. Well, they can have all these problems. They can get, the one I love is the mammary tumors. They can get mammary tumors. Okay. Are you going to be removing the mammaries when you do the spay? No, you're not going to be removing the mammaries. Okay, you do realize that if you don't remove the mammaries, they could still get cancerous tumors, right? So what you're saying is a little misleading, but okay. But my point is, and I digress again, I'm so sorry. My point is, we rely on our vets to steer us in the right direction, but somewhere along the line, they stop doing that. So, Bridget, I don't want you to feel guilty about getting your boy neutered, because the person who should feel guilty is your vet who recommended it to you. It's not you. I am a firm believer of when you know better, you do better. And for your next dog, right, you'll remember this feeling and you'll question what the vet recommends. And I think that there are a lot of people, many of which who have formally announced that they're leaving our group because they are very uncomfortable with that thought. It's kind of a lonely feeling, like, hey, my vet doesn't have my dog's best interest at heart. And that sucks. And I know that sucks because I'm in that same boat. And I've got multiple vets. I've got one that's super cheap that I can get in at a moment's notice. I've got one that's a little more expensive, but they do a good job. And then I've got a reproductive vet, which is clear across town, almost an hour and a half, 2 hours away, that's pricier, right? And meanwhile, I have to do all of my research to kind of keep everybody in check. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. It's frustrating. It's hard. So, yeah. So big hugs to all the pet parents tonight, because I know that everybody who is a part of Padfoot Palms, Poodles and Pals, We all love our pets. That's why we're here. That's what drew you to the group. We all love to post pictures of our dogs and like to brag about the awesome things that they did and how funny they are laying upside down in the bed. But really what brought us together is our love for them and kind of that yearning inside that we want to learn something that can be helpful to them. Right? Whether that's nutrition or training or raw feeding or home cooked or breeding related, right? Health testing, OFA, pen hip, right? All of these things that we learn, we're doing it because we want to do good by our pets. And I love you all for that, because those are my people. You guys are my people. So, Keisha said, oh my God, Allie, I need to move where you live. They require vaccination for grooming in New York City. Yeah, it's hard. You got to find a groomer that has a private facility, right? So not a big box store where they have to abide by corporate rules. Usually it's going to be further away out in the country, which we are. So, but it's challenging. Keisha said, I did the same thing for Peanut, no shots for 5 years until his groomer moved. Then I had to go back to vaccination, which I hate. Yeah, that's the thing. We just need to do the best that we can. I had somebody else comment in another group today. I was talking about pet foods, and I was kind of laying out what an ideal pet food / kibble would look like, right? It would be 30% or less in carbs. There would ideally only be one starch or carb or grain source, right? Maximum 3, but ideally only 1. It would have quality ingredients. It would not contain this, that, and other, right? And I was just kind of laying it out there like, this is what we should be looking for. And their comment was really that what I had laid out was impossible to find in a kibble, right? A processed food, which is partially true, but that doesn't mean that that's not what we should look for. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't educate people to know what to look for, because before I ever started out on my pet food journey, I had no idea, right? Most people are shopping based on price or based on a health need for their pet, right? If they have an allergy or something like that. So, yeah, it's all about, you got to learn more and then apply what you learn. Okay, great. Katie says, I was lucky that my breeder at 10,000 Lakes Pomeranian told me not to get my baby girl fixed until she was at least a year old, right? Which is good. Ideally, it's 2 years, but yes. And I could wait even longer. Yes. She's super against the lepto vaccine also. Yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with the breeder from 10,000 Lakes Pomeranians. Yeah, she does a good job. And she has some beautiful palms. That's for sure. So, I relied too much on my vets and had my boy neutered too. I trusted the vet too. Don't feel bad. Oh, she's making a supportive comment. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the majority of people who have pets are getting them neutered at 6 months or earlier. And we're seeing more and more of the joint issues, the ligament issues, issues of the lymphatic system, issues of the digestive system. Like, if you ever get a chance to talk to somebody and talk them out of spaying and neutering before 1 year, ideally before 2 years. Ask them to talk to a woman who's gone through menopause. They should have one in their life, right? Maybe a mother, a sister, a grandmother. Talk to them about how they felt when their hormones were gone. And that is all the answer that you need. There are so many body systems that rely on hormones. It's not just about reproduction. There's so much more to it than that. That's why we don't spay and neuter people. Right? Unless, of course, if it's medically necessary. So, anyway, I could do a whole live session on spay and neuter. Don't even get me started. Oh, Bridget said thank you. You're very welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I love to see pet parents that are doing right, you know, by their pets and doing the best that they can. And like I was mentioning earlier, that post I was talking about where I was talking about the ideal pet food, no commercial pet food is going to be perfect, whether it's kibble or raw. It's not going to be perfect. It might have, the raw might be frozen and have freezer burn. You know, the kibble might have too many carbs, right? There isn't going to be a perfect food. Even food, if you do DIY and make it yourself, may not be perfect. You can't account for how much sodium is in the chicken, right? There are certain things that we have to, you know, be lenient about. There has to be a give and take. But the point is to be educated and do the best that you can. So Jaleesa said, I came here after searching for DCM info on YouTube. I learned so much since joining the group. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love that. Okay, Jaleesa says, Allie, serious question. Let me put on my serious face. Have you thought about making your own food? Listen, Jaleesa, I was just saying that earlier, that I was going to make my own food and that it was going to have these like crazy outlandish claims on the front, like, you know, that it was ideal for dogs and perfect for unicorns and grain-free, keto, human grade, grains grown on Mars. Like, I was going to make all sorts of outlandish claims. So, yeah, I've had a lot of people that have asked me if I would make a food or, you know, consider selling a food or making a commercial product. So realistically, the challenges with that is to make something that is cost effective, but not compromise on ingredients. And there are a lot of companies that start out that way and they just completely fall off the bandwagon. So yeah, so I will not be making a pet food in the foreseeable future. But that was a great question. Ooh, Bridget said that her vet's okay with her not doing shots. She's thankful for that. Yeah, that's fantastic. There are good vets out there, especially if you can find a holistic vet. I mean, it can make all the difference in the world. Oh, Paula said, I've learned so much from you. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you, guys. I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You know, this group started out with 50 people that were all just, you know, kind of here hanging out, listening to me, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't have a group without the phenomenal members that we have. And there is nothing that brings me more joy than seeing people who have learned in the group and then they go out and they share that. right? Like we had somebody post not too long ago about how they were trying to educate their aunt to help her with her overweight dog, right? They're taking what they learn, they're sharing it in other groups, they're sharing it with their family and their friends. That is fantastic, because you know who benefits from that? All of those pets. All of those people, even just by talking to your family and your friends, the tendrils of knowledge just reach out and they start to spread everywhere. And I see people doing it. I see them adding their family members and friends to the group all the time. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. And it also shows, you know, that you care about your family members too, and your friends, right? So when they know better, they can do better too. Keisha said, I think you should do something on spayed and neutered. Seems a lot of members have puppies. Yeah, I've got an entire notebook of videos that I want to make. It's just a matter of having the time to make them. I used to have a video on ovary-sparing spay and vasectomy, and I had to take it down. It's back when Iceland was a little puppy 3 years ago. And I was just kind of throwing the ball and playing with her, and right, so people were watching her while I was talking. But I was a little scatterbrained because I had just started making videos. So, and as you guys can see, since you've been here live with me, I'm kind of woo all over the place. So, yeah, but I need to redo that video. You're absolutely right, Keisha. It's an important video. And I think it would help a lot of people. Danielle said, yes, I would love like a guide to give my puppy parents on waiting to spay and neuter and why. Okay, Danielle, I will say that if you go, I'm pretty sure it's puppyculture.com. Hang on, I don't want to give you the wrong website. Puppyculture.com. Go. Yes. Okay, so when you go to puppyculture.com, puppyculture, when you go to shop our products, boop. Did it load? Okay, here we go. Puppy culture. Okay, so if you go to... Oh, they redid their thing since I last looked here. Okay, hang on. DVDs. Maybe it's under posters? Let's go through this together. I'm glad that I'm going through this. No. Okay, they've got the age-appropriate exercise poster, which is great for breeders. Oh, sorry, there's a glare. That's great for breeders. Did they take it down? Anyway, the reason why... Oh, maybe it's under books. I'm sorry. Hang on. It's under books. Okay. Whew, I was in a panic for a minute. Okay, so the Puppy Culture Spay and Neuter booklet. Can you see that right there? Again, I apologize if it's backwards. They are $16.95. They are a gorgeous color booklet. They're laminated. If you're interested in seeing some of what the booklet looks like, if you go into the files section of my group, there is some of the information has been posted there. It'll say OSS or vasectomy. It'll be some of the very first files that were created. If you would like, you can get one of those and then use it as a talking point for your puppy buyers, or you can even include it in their puppy kit, which I highly recommend. It is a phenomenal booklet. It's got color photos. It's very entertaining to look at, so people don't get bored. All of the information, all of it is cited, and all of the scientific and veterinary studies are cited in the back of the pamphlet. It's fantastic. So what I would do is order one, take a look at it, see how you feel about it, see if it's something you just want to talk to your puppy parents about, or if it's something you want to include in your puppy kits, because it's phenomenal. And it goes over everything for males, everything for females. It talks about all the different joint issues, the cancers, everything in depth. So yeah, definitely check that out. Okay. That, by the way, that is the most thorough spay and neuter material designed for puppy buyers that I've found on the market yet. So I actually found it when I was in search of something to give my puppy buyers in their puppy kits. So yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, Katie says, oh, it jumped up. Hold on. Is it financially realistic to feed a 45-pound pit plus a 7-pound pom a raw diet? I feed the little one raw, but my pit is such a big eater, and I don't know if I would keep up. She eats Blue Buffalo right now, and I know that's bad. So I know that it can be challenging for to feed, a larger dog a raw diet. One of the things that you can do, and a lot of this is going to depend on your living situation. Do you have space? What a lot of raw feeders do is they join a co-op, or they buy in bulk, and then they have like an actual dog freezer. The other thing you can do is if you have friends or family that hunts, a lot of times you can get deer meat, right? Venison for free or cheap. Another thing you can do is you can post ads everywhere. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all sorts of places, local yard sale postings, right? And you can post that you will take any unwanted or freezer burned or expired meat, right? If people are cleaning out their freezer, because people are wasteful. Before you do that, I do recommend that you take someone with you, right? Always be safe. Please, please, please be safe. And you're going to need to be picky about what you'll take and what you don't take, right? Obviously, you can't feed bacon or sausage or stuff like that. But, for example, I posted in my neighborhood group, hey, I feed my dog meat, and it's, getting close to holiday times. If you're looking to clear out your freezer, I'll take, anything that you don't want. And as it turns out, I had a neighbor just 4 houses up from me whose husband and son hunt yearly. And she was like, I need this whole freezer cleared out. Will you take it? And it was like 2.5 big coolers, like big coolers full of meat. It was crazy. There was venison jerky, there was, loin meat and leg meat and all sorts of stuff that my dogs had never had before. And I was like, holy cow, this is great. So is it financially realistic? That there's a lot of factors that play into that. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to beat yourself up about it, right? So maybe what the first step is to upgrade your Pitty's food, right, from the Blue Buffalo, and we start from there. And then maybe you find some meat on sale, right? Or maybe you're getting raw for the pom, which is much more affordable. and you buy a little bit extra so that you can add some, right, to your pitty's meal, right? And you can just start there. You don't have to go 100% gung-ho from the bat, right? Because like you said, you have to be realistic, and that's the key. Bless her heart, I have one follower who's a college student, and she messaged me and she was so upset and tearful, and she was like, I really want to feed my dogs raw, but I can't afford it. What do I do? And we came up with a plan. We came up with a plan where her first step was to upgrade her dog's food. And then the next step was to add 20% fresh ingredients. Those could be green veggies, right? By the way, just adding 20% green leafy veggies to your dog's food can decrease their risk of cancer by over 70%. Why aren't vets pushing that on people? They should be telling everybody, hey, you need to be putting leafy greens in your dog's diet. Okay. So that was step 1. And then step 2 was the leafy greens. And then step 3 was, okay, we are going to add a sardine to your dog's food every day. Okay, and then she started doing that. And then she found that, hey, when this is on sale, I can add this to my dog's food. Or she found a manager special, or she went to an Asian market and they had a whole bunch of stuff really cheap. They had, odd cuts and weird looking stuff and stuff that she had to trim the fat off of to make it, something she could feed to her dog, but it worked out, right? So you don't have to go cold turkey, 100% raw. You can do it in steps. I am happy even when people just give it to their dog as a treat. Right? You're making your food. Like I said, you cut off a little piece of that chicken, you give it to the dog. You scoop out a little, scoop of raw beef, ground beef, you give it to the dog, right? Even if you just want to start there, I think that's great. Because every step forward that you take is a step in the right direction. And every step that you take in the right direction is meaningful. And it makes a difference for your dog. So don't feel like it has to be all or nothing. Like, if I can't feed my dog raw, then I'm not doing right by my dog. No. And there are raw feeders that will tell you that. But I will be the first one to smack them around and tell them that they're not right. Because that's not real life. Right? We have to deal with our reality. So, Katie, that was a great question, and I think that you've got an idea now where to start, and just take it from there. I'm getting notifications that Suze has purchased items for her game. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, it's funny. Paula said, I love that about you. You're real like us. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 6 years or so that I was you, right? Just starting out on a journey. And you just got to see where it takes you. But it is a journey. Some people laugh when I say that it's a nutritional journey. I'm not saying that to be cute. Some people take it that way because sometimes when I speak, I have a tendency to, get flowery and poetic, but it really is a journey. And like I said, one step in the right direction, you're on your journey. There was a part of your journey that led you here, right? And here you are on a Friday night, hanging out with me. There was part of your nutritional journey that led you here. So anyway, just try to keep that in mind. Don't beat yourself up too bad. Definitely don't beat yourself up about anything in the past, right? We've all given dogs raw hides, okay? when I was a kid, that was the only bone my dog got, was rawhide, right? Because we didn't know any better. Now, right, we have more information. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Okay, Danielle said, awesome, thank you. I'm very new to breeding and want to do the best and be the best I can. Good for you. Thank you. You're very welcome. Oh, good. She's familiar with puppy culture. I'm looking into getting that as well. Okay, money-saving tip. Danielle, you're going to love me because I am full of money-saving tips for breeders. Okay, go on eBay and search for puppy culture. And then a lot of times you will find either a complete set of DVDs with the workbook, or you might need to purchase the workbook separately. Anyway, you can save a lot of money like that. So go to eBay. If you don't need the set right now, right? If you don't have a litter coming up or a litter currently, or you're planning ahead, then just kind of sit on it for a couple of months. I think it took me like 2.5 months, and I was able to get the whole set. I want to say it was like $45 with a brand new workbook that was in perfect condition. A breeder just bought it and never even used it and was just trying to get rid of it. So yeah, it's great. What are some of the other ones? I need to make a video talking about all the different things like that. So yeah, hopefully that helps. It's all about saving money. Okay, great. Hey, Katie said it was an amazing idea. Okay, good. She's going to start with upgrading her food. Fantastic. Okay, good. Yeah, just take a look at the list and see what would work for you, right? I don't know if she has any, dietary restrictions. So just take a look and see what works for you. So yeah, that's great. Hey, Danielle said she just cleared out her freezer last week, thinking it was even unfit for my dogs. Oh no, facepalm. Yeah, so, I mean, there's some stuff that'll be, freezer burned beyond belief because we're humans and we're wasteful, right? We're all guilty of that. But, yeah, a lot of times you can thaw it out and maybe even sear it for a minute, right? To kind of bring it back to life, maybe in a little bit of oil. Just kind of get the pan, just a couple of drops and sear it, whatever the meat might be, and bring it back to life, and your dog will love you for it. So I don't recommend feeding exclusively old meat, but yeah, that's what people fed their dogs back in the day too. So, okay, Katie said, oops, sorry, it jumped up. Katie said, is it bad that I let my dogs chew on bully sticks all day long? No. Should I take them away after a certain amount of time? No. Again, it depends on your dog. If they last all day, I would say kudos to you. You have some pretty fantastic dogs. The only time that I recommend taking bully sticks away is if they're unsupervised, right? Or if they become small enough that it becomes a choking hazard, which, is going to be a lot faster for a larger dog. So, yeah, no, you don't have to take them away. I really love the Bully Buddy, which is one of those options where it holds the end of the bully stick so they can only chew down a certain distance, and then the rest of it is, inside the contraption so they can't chew it. So those are really great. But yeah, you don't have to take them away. Okay, Lauren says, we currently feed pre-made raw. Do you have suggestions for resources that would help us figure out if it's balanced enough or we should add something to that food? Okay, so if you're doing a pre-made raw, what I would do is go to that company's website and look to see what their AFCO statement is. So it should be fairly easy to find, or it may be on the packaging of the raw food. So it's usually located around the guaranteed analysis or the ingredients list, and it'll tell you this food is AAFCO approved for maintenance or intermittent feeding, right? Or it's approved for all life stages, including dogs or puppies that are going to be over 70 pounds, right? So there should be some sort of AAFCO statement that tells you if it's complete and balanced. If there isn't one, then it is not complete and balanced, in which case it would be almost impossible, pretty much impossible, to figure out what you would need to add to the food to make it complete and balanced. That's why it's very challenging. You know, people think, oh, you know, I'll just get this food and then add a multivitamin, but it doesn't work that way. It's much more complicated than that. So yeah, so take a look at their website and see what you can find. Oh good, Katie said the bully sticks are in the bully stick holders. That's fantastic. Jaleesa said Toby was working on the same bully stick for 2 weeks. Never really had to take it away from him. You people. Jaleesa, why are you up here bragging? Okay? My dogs go through a bully stick in like 10 minutes. I'm like, please, just chew it for a little while, please. I love you guys. I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay. Oh, they're huge and stinky. That's too funny. Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, I am starving. So Jaleesa said, I'm surprised too. Yeah, that's great. That's super cost effective if they bully sticks last a long time. So I am starving, so I am going to call it a night. I hope that you guys have had a lot of fun. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that this has prompted you to ask other questions, which I hope you'll post in the group so that other people can help, you know, learn more too. If you joined us halfway through or part of the way through and you missed the beginning, don't panic. I will download the video and post it into the group. You can also go and watch my previous live videos, which are also in the group. And I will also post this to the YouTube channel, so you can check that out as well. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us, it helps me, it helps the dogs, it helps you. Plus, I've got some really funny videos up there, so you should check out some of my older stuff. They're pretty entertaining. So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being part of the group. And as always, be kind, rewind.